This is the SuperCoach NRL official podcast. Round preview with Tom
Hello,
Sangster and
SuperCoaches.
Rob
Welcome to our live React Teams podcast. It is round 15, somewhat of a normal round after these big bye rounds and origin weeks, etc. But we start with some pretty significant breaking news. It's just dropped in our inbox from David Riccio, our reporter, who says that Api Coruscant named at halfback for the Tigers this week. Obviously, there are big implications. His Blues hopes are basically over now, given he's playing halfback and he's only in contention for hooker for the Blues. Also, big Supercoach implications, given that he just won't be getting through that massive work at hooker that he does every week.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think there'll still be a lot of attention directed his way playing in the halves, but he won't be playing in the middle, so his work rate will be going down. And I mean, just given the injury crisis at the moment, you wouldn't expect there to be a lot of attacking upside there playing in the halves for him.
No, it's a bit of a worry for owners, that's for sure. We've got a massive show coming up. Send through your questions on Facebook or YouTube Live. We'll get to them at the end of the show. We're going to have big news on Lachlan Galvin when we know that he is out. Dylan Edwards, Nicho Hynes, Ryan Papenhuyzen, David Armstrong, some really big Supercoach names will be confirmed either in or out. We've got some early mail on all of those guys, and I'll start with Lachlan Galvin, confirmed out. He's been playing for a month with a broken hand. He's done a pretty good effort to play that well in that month, but he was certainly down over the weekend and will be rested this week. We don't know if that means he will miss next week too, which is really the big one that we need him for, given that it's the big bye round.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty, which is probably the worst part about the injury.
Yeah.
I mean, he's definitely missing this week, probably missing next week as well, which is really, that really sucks. But given that he's been able to play through the injury, hopefully it's just like a short-term thing and he's able to come back soon, but it might mean he's a sell.
And it sounds like there's a little bit of unrest at the club there as well. Either Galvin is unhappy or his manager is unhappy, or a bit of both. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But certainly a popular trade this week is Galvin to Cody Walker. It only costs you about $45K. I'm really tempted. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, we were talking about it before the show. Cody Walker has that negative break-even at the moment. It only costs you a little bit, and he'll make you some money, plus he covers round 16. So he ticks all the boxes, and with a bit of uncertainty over Galvin, I think it's a decent move.
Yeah, I'm getting really tempted by it, that's for sure. My rule coming into this week was no trades, because I'm getting so short. But that one just seems like one that you should get on. Dylan Edwards will be named, so he'll get a chance at that origin spot. Whether he plays or not is a whole other thing, and we'll be chasing that for late mail. But huge news for a lot of Supercoaches. If you own him, you probably lock him in and captain him this week as well.
Yeah, well, I think, annoyingly, a lot of people got rid of him in the last few weeks, given he was initially named for that blue spot. Then he picked up the injury, and now he'll be back for Penrith, and then maybe out for Origin again, so there's a lot of uncertainty. But if you've held him through this time, yeah, he's a great captaincy
It's
option.
good. I mean, you've held him just for this week, essentially. You've held him, so you probably lock him in as captain. Nicho Hynes, he will be back. So he's trained. The news on him, he's trained this week. He will play, and he's playing for an Origin spot as well. There is some chat that he might drop out of that New South Wales Origin team, which, while not good news for Nicho Hynes, would be pretty good news for Supercoaches.
Yeah, well, I think the fact that New South Wales lost the first game and Mitch Moses is back and playing pretty well, this means there's a bit of pressure on Nicho. I'm not an owner, so I kind of hope he does still stay in that Origin squad. But yeah, a lot of eyeballs on him this weekend. Yeah,
I sold Nicho a few weeks back. I'm pretty happy with it now, but who knows? He could easily come out this weekend after a rest last week and bang out his usual 100-odd points.
Yep.
Right, the teams are dropping in about a minute or so. I quickly want to point out that Ryan Papenhuyzen won't be named this week, but a really good chance for next week. Now, the issue here for Supercoach is that Sua Fa'alonga is a guy that a lot of people were relying on for next week's big bye. The mail from Brent Reid is that Fa'alonga will drop back to the bench and Papenhuyzen will play fullback next week.
Yeah, that makes it a bit of a trap and very concerning. I mean, obviously, if he's playing on the bench, he'll probably get on the field and get you at least some points. But it's a massive concern for everyone who has held him for this period.
We'll have some news on David Armstrong too, who was out last week with a quad injury. There was some conjecture that he'd been dropped. He's actually out with injury. We'll have that news for you in a sec. The teams have just dropped, but I want to point out that SuperCoach, you can get code for only $59 up front for 12 months. So a good deal there. Or get SuperCoach Plus for $24.95. It's got a buy planner in there. You can get through all these minor buys like this week, minor buys like last week, the big buys like the Origin rounds coming up too. Teams are in. What have we got at the Sharkies?
Yep.
Nicho Hynes is definitely back. So Daniel Atkinson is the guy that drops out. This is what Ricky O wrote about 2 hours ago on our team's coverage. So Trindle's there in the halves. That's about it. Do you like CSC for Talakai as a buy?
I do. He's held that spot, obviously. Yeah,
so he's starting, and Wilton is still out, nowhere in the squad. But we're still not quite sure when Wilton returns. And a Talakai trade would hinge entirely on whether Wilton is fit or not. But he's a good price. He's only in the mid-300s.
He's a good price, and now that he's starting and playing decent minutes in the back row, he's obviously got a lot more upside than when he was coming off the bench. But there's just a bit of uncertainty around T. Wilton, so for me, it's a no. But it could potentially be a short-term play.
Yeah, and doesn't play this next upcoming buy, so it's a no for me. But again, I want to save trades, but he's tempting me. He really is. On to the Dolphins. So they've got Hammer and Felice Kafusi returning from Origin duty. Try Fuller is not in the team, which is what we're expecting, but he should play next week. They got Cody Nikorima back into that team. Supercoach-wise, not a great deal doing. I know they cover this next bye, but Tavita Pangai Jr. is nowhere to be seen, even though he has signed for the club. We've added him to Supercoach at around the mid-300k mark, so it's almost cheapie territory.
Yeah, I hadn't seen his price yet, so that's actually... If he manages to get a starting spot at some point, maybe during the Origin period, that could be tempting potentially.
Yeah.
But I don't. For now, it's definitely a wait and see.
All these guys coming back from breaks out of the game often take a while to get back into it. So I would say avoid for now. But if he comes back and plays one big game, then a lot of people will be pretty keen on him. On to the Cowboys. We have... or the Raiders we'll go with first. Hudson Young returning after Origin. Not a great deal going on there. Any love for Joe Tapine?
I started the season with him and held him for the early rounds, but his usage of the Raiders early on was just so inconsistent that I eventually had to abandon ship before he started losing a ton of cash. I just have a hard time picking up Raiders players in general. So it's a no from me, but I can understand why everyone would want to jump on.
He's a bit cheaper than Adam Fanua-Blake, plus good buy schedule. Had the buy last week. Doesn't play Origin. He's not eligible for Origin. There's a lot to like about him. The thing that I really like is that he always comes good at this time of year. He's a late season guy, and I don't know why all the Raiders forwards are like this. But it just happens. So if you don't, I'd go Adam Fanua-Blake first. But if you don't have the cash, I think Tapine's a pretty good trade.
I can agree with that for sure.
At the Cowboys, so we got Talangi and Robson back after being rested following Origin. All predicted changes really here. Nanai's back in the starting side after playing limited minutes off the bench. Scott Drinkwater is a popular sell. Does this make sense to you?
I have him in my team, and I got a bit of flack last week from saying that I haven't been too impressed with him. But then he came out last week and put only 45 points, I think. So he's just been pretty inconsistent, and he's... I can't remember what his BE is from off the top of my head, but I think he's predicted to lose a bunch of cash this week. So I can somewhat understand the sell, and I don't... off the top of my head, I don't think he covers around 16 by either. So he's ticking a lot of sell boxes for me.
Yep. On to the Rabbitohs. So Cameron Murray is back from that hip injury, which means he gets a shot at an Origin position. He's on the bench, though, so you'd expect some limited minutes for him. Saliva Havili is out with a calf injury. Supercoach-wise, suddenly a really popular team. The Rabbitohs have been junk for most of the year. It's been avoid. But then you've got a couple of guys at some really good prices because, mainly because the Rabbitohs have been going so badly. But you've got someone like Cody Walker at a really good price, plus Latrell Mitchell, who I bought in last week and captained, and I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I bought him in last week, but didn't captain him.
Yeah.
If I had, I would have ended up with a decent score, but I didn't. So that really cost me. But yeah, even at the start of the year when Souths were going bad, they still had a couple of guys that were still banging out big scores for Supercoach, and now they're actually starting to come a little good. So I really like Latrell Mitchell as a buy, but there's obviously some Origin spots up for grabs, and he could be a contender for there. So there's a little bit of doubt there. Cody Walker, you wouldn't think is really in consideration for Origin.
Yeah.
Plus he's got low BE, and he ticks a lot of boxes.
Cody, he is really tempting. He's the second most purchased player.
Yep.
It makes sense to me. Latrell, if you got on, you should have got on last week. It doesn't make sense to get on this week.
Yep.
I bought him as a 2-week buy, and then I'll see what happens next round. I could easily go back to Edwards, or I could go to Tedesco, depending on who makes Origin. And if Latrell doesn't get that left centre spot for Origin, fingers crossed, from a Supercoach perspective, then I just stay with Latrell for a little bit longer.
Yeah, definitely hoping Latrell misses out there.
At the Broncos, so just the one change, Xavier Willison coming onto the bench. He was out with personal reasons last week, and Fletcher Baker drops to the reserves. Fletcher Baker had a bit of a unhappy game over the weekend. Tony Staggs is good to go despite injuring his knee last week. Reece Walsh definitely out, so all that conjecture about him potentially being available this week was false, and he's not playing.
Yep. Not that surprising given the head knock, to be honest.
They couldn't play him.
Yeah.
On to the Tigers. So, as we mentioned, Api Coruscant at halfback and Aidan Caesar is partnering him in the halves. They got the young gun Talon De Silva at hooker, so it's a new look spine. Of course, they're missing a whole bunch of halves, including they got Adam Dewey listed among reserves, actually.
That's interesting.
He either did he return on the weekend, or his name to return through?
I think he was set to return for New South Wales Cup this weekend coming, but I guess if he's named on the extended reserves, there's a chance he comes back in. But given he's just coming back from another ACL injury, I think there's pretty unlikely that he plays first grade this weekend.
Jaden Sullivan's the other guy who's injured as well.
Yep.
In terms of Supercoach, the big question is Lachlan Galvin out. There is a couple of good replacements. We've mentioned Cody Walker a lot, but Tyron Wishart is calling out to me as well. About $500k, you can make money off that trade.
Yeah, he's been doing very surprisingly well.
Yeah.
Given his, what we've seen from him in the past, mostly as a bench utility. But now that he's starting in the absence of Cameron Munster, he's actually playing really, really well. Does he play the round 16 bye?
16, yeah. They don't play 19.
I think I'd still prefer Cody Walker. Just because there's still a bit of unknown around Wishart.
Exactly, and there's pedigree with
exactly.
with Walker.
So I think I still prefer Cody Walker, but I don't mind Wishart. There's a bit of a smoky.
Nice little pod play, that's for sure. The Titans, they got Phil Sammy back from injury, which means Beau Firma finally goes back to the back row instead of playing in the centres. Popular buy this week is obviously David Fifita. He's been popular for a while. You would think that he doesn't play Origin, which makes him available for that next big buy next week. The issue is one injury at the Maroons, and he could easily be in. So do you pull the trigger this week or wait until next week? I'd be tempted to wait until next week, although I own Dave Fifita and I'm extremely happy about it.
Yeah, I bought him in last week and captained him, and he did all right.
And, that try saved him too.
Yeah, exactly. I would still be bringing him in this week. Like you said, unless there is an injury, you would assume he's not coming into the Maroons side, especially since they won game one and they don't need to make any real changes. So, do you want to go through life counting on there not to be an injury before you pick up a player? I would be jumping on him this week still.
There's going to be something happen this week, and that's why I'm saying it's a good week to safe trades. Sit on your hands. And if it wasn't for damn Cody Walker coming good, then I would be doing that. But only one trade for my team this week, and that's it. Moving on to the Warriors, rather. Sean Johnson is definitely back.
He's named, yep.
Yeah, which is big news for them. They got Tamari Martin in the halves as well.
Roger Tuivasa-Sheck on the reserves.
In the reserves. So potentially two really big guns back for the Warriors.
Yeah, that's pretty big. I don't know how many people have held Roger through this injury period, but I mean, if he's named among the reserves, I'd say there's a pretty good chance that he is, if not back this week, back next week. So if you've held him, well done. He should be back soon.
And he covers the next bye, as does Adam Fanua-Blake, who's really popular this week. I got on last week, and he just keeps scoring tries. I don't know how he does it. There's nothing on, and he still somehow manages to barge over the line. Yeah,
I've held him this whole time, so I'm really happy with him, even when he did miss those games. But now he's backfiring again, and I'm happy I've held him.
Moving on to the Storm. So, no Pappenhausen, as far as I can tell so far, which means we can bank on Fa'alongo this week.
Yep.
He's not even in the reserves, is he? But, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Brett Reed had the story today that Pappenhausen looks like he will return next week. Fa'alongo goes to the bench. On the week, we really needed Fa'alongo to be playing fullback, unfortunately. Remus Smith has been named a Spider HIA. Not a great deal going on there, to be honest, teams-wise. But Jerome Hughes, most popular purchase this week. Coming off a ton, I don't hate it. Covers around 16.
Yeah, he ticks a lot of the boxes. I mean, he's in a good team. He's playing well at the moment. He covers the bye. I guess it just depends what your halfback situation's like. If you're desperate for a half this week, he's probably one of the best you can get. That covers that round 16 bye. For me, I won't be going on just because my halfback situation's pretty solid at the moment. I've got Dylan Brown and Sam Walker. And Sam Walker covers that bye for me, so I won't be going there. But I do really like him.
At the Eels, so they got Mike Acevo back from, I believe it was a hamstring injury that kept him out. But they still have Blaze Talangi on the wing, which I like. I like him on the wing because he gets through a fair bit of work.
Yep.
He is a popular sell this week. Look, it makes sense on some level, given that he's basically peaked. The break-even is 44, and he doesn't cover this upcoming bye. So it makes a little bit of sense to me, but when he's playing 80 minutes, he's producing keeper scores. So I'm more than willing to hang on to him for at least one more week and see what happens. Maybe I sell next week when it's the big buy and he's out, but I mean, he could be a full season keeper.
Yeah, like you said, it makes. I think it makes a little bit of sense, the trade, just given that he has basically capped out. I think, given his break evens, what did you say, 44? He should still get at least one more price rise, you'd think, given his recent form. I like him. I'm definitely going to be holding him for at least another week, but he's a sell contender in the next few weeks for me, for sure.
There's some pretty big news on Jermaine Hopgood here. So he has been named, but Trent Barrett, the coach, says that he's got nerve pain in his back and neck and that he shouldn't have played over the weekend. Got reduced minutes, backing up from Origin. This is an issue going forward, not just for SuperCoaches, because he is a popular SuperCoach player, but also for the Maroons. If Jermaine Hopgood is out, and we were told it was a 50-50 call between him and David Fafita, if Jermaine Hopgood is out of Origin 2, does David Fafita go in and stuff up a lot of SuperCoach purchases?
Yeah, well, I guess given he has been named again this week, maybe he's managing that pain a little bit better, or maybe he's a late out. It's a bit hard to tell. I'm still hopeful that Fafita will not be picked for the Maroons, so I'm hoping Jermaine Hopgood is good to go for that reason.
Yep, I hope so too, absolutely. On to, where are we at now? The Roosters. Is Brandon Smith there? That is the big thing we're looking for in this team.
He
is
not there. Connor Watson named to start, Sandon Smith on the bench, so Brandon Smith has been dropped. And who knows how much it's related to him being given that disciplinary breach during the week.
but it's pretty clear that the Roosters aren't very happy with Brandon Smith.
I mean, he's been sort of in pretty bad form anyway, on top of that disciplinary breach notice. I'm not really that surprised. I think the Roosters have been playing a lot better when Connor Watson, before Connor Watson was injured anyway, so I think it makes a lot of sense now that he's back.
He's been talked about as an Origin contender as well, so if he has a blinder of a game in this clash, he could well find himself in that team for Origin too. Moving on to, I'll just mention that very popular Supercoach team, the Roosters, and a lot of Supercoaches are relying on Joey Manu, Terrell May, Dom Young, Sam Walker, Crichton, Teddy. It's a really popular Supercoach team. Thankfully, back from the bye.
Yep.
Onto your Sea Eagles. What's happening there, Wilso? Hamoli Oloka-Atu has been cleared of a calf injury, so we're hoping he's there, which he is.
He's named.
Which is good news for the Sea Eagles and for New South Wales.
Yeah, well, I have Hamoli in my Supercoach Classic team as well, so his injury really hurt me last week. I think he only ended up on 11 or 13 points or something, so glad that he's back, and it's good for New South Wales as well. Bad for my Supercoach team that he's in the Blues team, but good for Manly, so we need all the help we can get.
He has been absolutely killing it this year.
Yeah.
No changes for the Dragons. Now, one thing I want to point out with the Dragons is that Zach Lomax, extremely popular this week, even though he's got, even though he's got Origin coming up, plus a really tough a tough draw coming up as well. Would you be going out of your way to buy Zach Lomax this week? It kind of reeks of chasing last week's points. And he was sensational on the weekend, backing up from Origin 48 hours afterwards. Had an absolute blinder. But you can't just have a knee-jerk reaction like that to a guy who's going to miss so much footy coming up.
Exactly. This is like the classic chasing last week's point scenario. He's not on my radar at all. I would not be bringing him in. On
to the Knights. Now, the big question here is whether David Armstrong is in the team, and I can see he's certainly not in the number 1 jersey.
Yeah.
Fletcher Sharp is there. He may emerge as a cheapie down the track.
Armstrong is on the reserves, though.
Armstrong's on the reserve, so we've got a tough wait for that.
Knights playing mind games with us.
So it's very late in the round. It's the last game of the round. That's going to be a tough wait. I am very tempted to sell David Armstrong. I think it makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels. The issue is, there's no good cheapies around. I really want to go him down to someone to free up cash, but there are no good cheapies. You've probably got to go him up to a genuine keeper at centre wing, and there are lots of genuine keepers in that position. Yeah,
I think just the uncertainty is really painful. I mean, you could, if we find out he is out, you could pivot to Fletcher Sharp, but like you said, they're playing the last game of the round, so that's just it's too late. I think given the uncertainty, you've got to get rid of him, and I think you've got to get rid of him. And like you said, there's not a ton of good cheapies out there, so you may have to just pivot to another gun.
Yep, indeed. Fletcher Sharp only available at fullback for Supercoach, which makes it a little bit tough, unfortunately. Yeah. Also, Bradman Best named to return from that hamstring injury. What I am hoping is that he has an absolute blinder at left centre, gets named there for New South Wales, which means Latrell doesn't play for New South Wales and takes the field in round 16 from my Supercoach team, and he'll get the captaincy that week.
Exactly. That's a dream scenario. So hopefully Best is good to go and has a blinder. I suppose he is coming back from the hamstring, so there is a chance, given that it is the last game of the round. Although, looking at the reserves, there's a chance he is a laid out if he's not 100% good to go. So hopefully he is good to go and has a blinder.
So at the Panthers, Dylan Edwards is definitely there and he is starting. So good news on him for a lot of Supercoaches, and he'll be chasing that New South Wales spot as well. Also, big news for New South Wales is that Liam Martin has been named on the extended bench, so he could potentially get a game in before Origin 2 as well. Supercoach-wise, I don't see there's a great deal doing teams-wise. I'm just loving watching Liam Henry each week.
Yeah.
Started out playing small minutes and not really getting great scores, but recently the minutes have upped. He's scoring tries. He's playing a bit of edge, bit of middle. He's just been such a valuable a valuable addition rather for the Panthers.
Yeah, just been killing it for the Panthers and been doing pretty well in SuperCoach as well. I think he's definitely a draft play. I wouldn't be really looking at him for Classic, but he's just one of those. He's just one of those. Oh, well.
He's in my 17 this week. Okay. Unfortunately, with Josh Curran out.
Yeah, well, he's killing it at the moment, so you'd be cheering.
Moving on to Josh Curran and the Bulldogs, they've got the bye this week, and they're a really popular SuperCoach team. So that means Curran, Preston, Sam Hughes in particular are popular sells. First of all, Josh Curran, would you sell? Cop that concussion on the weekend, but then has this week off this weekend, and hopefully he can get that better and then be on deck for that big bye next week. So yeah. I think he's a hold.
I think he's definitely a hold. I mean, the Bulldogs are on the bye this week, so he was going to miss this game anyway. So I don't think it's too much of a big loss. Assuming he is good to go for round 16, I think he's definitely a hold. I brought in Jacob Preston last week.
Oh, no.
So this is a complete disaster from me. So I'll be looking to move him on, I think. And then who's the front rower? Hughes.
Sam Hughes, struggling for minutes now.
Yeah, I'm desperate to somehow get him out of my team, but I can't figure out just a way to do it because there's no good swap.
There's no good cheapies in those forward positions, and I don't have enough money or the want to even own that many keepers in that position. So Sam Hughes is staying in my side. Hopefully he can get some decent minutes over that Origin round. Back to Jacob Preston. So the news on him is suspected fractured ankle. Yeah. So it's probably going to be long-term for him. So he is a sell and Curran a hold, as we said. On to some questions. Right. We've got heaps coming through. Chris says, so much professionalism now without Rob.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Absolutely. Thoughts on Lane trade options? Perhaps Talakai. I don't mind that trade at all. Sean Lane to Talakai. I think that's good. Particularly if you're a head-to-head player. For an overall player, it's a bit dicey, given that he doesn't cover 16.
Yeah, I think Lane definitely is someone to get rid of as well, given that he's now moved back to the bench and is playing sort of limited minutes in the middle. I think he's definitely a sell. And I like Talakai.
Luke Easton is saying, thoughts on Galvin to Walker? Yes, I think that's a good trade. And Armstrong to Lomax. Now, remember what we said before about Lomax? It is chasing points. For an overall player, you probably shouldn't do it with his upcoming draw, with missing Origin matches, etc. But if you're a head-to-head player and you can get Lomax this week before he goes up in price, it's probably not the worst.
I don't hate that. I think lock in Galvin to Walker, but I would be reassessing the Lomax trade. But like you said, if it's just head-to-head, then it makes a bit of sense. Scott
Ryan says, thank God the other so-called expert is not on the show today.
Bit of Wilson love? Hell yeah.
Hayward, that's Bailey Hayward, has now played 3 games starting at lock. Will he be dual for round 18? Definitely will be looking at that. I'll have to 100% lock it in, but I would say almost certainly he will. Yep. Don't hold me to it 100% live on the show under pressure, but I'm pretty sure he will. Sam Hugh, what do you got? Is it time to move on Armstrong, Talangi or Ero?
I'd be holding Ero.
Ero for sure. Like, he is basically a keeper. He's banging out 50s and 60s just in pure base. Imagine when he gets some attacking stats. Talangi, definite hold at least until next week, just to see how he goes on the wing. He could be a potential keeper for the rest of the year. And then Armstrong named on the extended bench. He looks like the one to sell. Yeah, if you had to sell one of them this week, I think it'd be Armstrong, just given the uncertainty around him. Right, well, big show today. Big thanks to Wilson. And we'll catch you for the Teams podcast at 11:30 a.m. on Thursday. We'll see you then.